Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're at. We are just letting people in right now, and we'll go ahead and get started. I am really glad that you could join us today for our Impact and Action webinar. We host these sessions every other month to spotlight communities actively working with C.O.R.E, sharing what they've done, what they've learned, and the results that they're seeing along the way. Today, you'll hear directly from Coral Gables, Florida, about what it looks like to move from collaboration to real, measurable results in practice. So here's how we're going to spend our time together today. I'm going to start with a few brief updates, and then we'll turn it over to David Harwood from Coral Gables to share their experience and the results they've achieved. After that, I'll come back for a few minutes to talk about how communities can get involved with C.O.R.E, and we'll leave time at the end for questions and discussion. This session is scheduled for 30 minutes, but we'll stay on for Q&A afterwards. And just a couple quick housekeeping notes. Please stay muted during this presentation and feel free to use the chat throughout. This is not official webinar mode, so please note that your camera may be on and you may or may not be muted. So many of you know us as Communities of Excellence 2026, a name that was chosen to reflect an ambitious vision leading up to our nation's 250th anniversary. As that moment arrives, our work is continuing forward as C.O.R.E, Communities of Resilience and Excellence. The name reflects both where we started and where our communities are headed, building systems that can deliver results and adapt over time. Along with that, we have launched a new website that as of today is live at connectwithcore.org. It brings together our programs, tools, and resources in a much cleaner way. I want to pause just for a moment on why we do this work. As part of our recent rebrand to C.O.R.E, we took the opportunity to sharpen both our mission and vision so they more clearly reflect the work that communities are actually doing today. Our vision is a network of thriving, resilient communities where every resident can feel they live well and feel they belong. Our mission, how we contribute to that vision, is to partner with communities to bring people together across sectors, align around a shared purpose, and improve the conditions that shape quality of life for all. You'll hear that emphasis on alignment and execution show up today throughout the conversation, not just in what Coral Gables achieved, but how they work together to make it happen. And this is where the work becomes practical. The C.O.R.E Guide, adapted from the Baldrige Framework, provides a shared way of thinking, a common language, core questions, and the systems level view of how communities actually improve quality of life. The impact pathway is how teams put that thinking into action. Through 5 milestones, communities build the capabilities they need to align partners, use data effectively, and execute together over time. Together, the guide and the impact pathway give teams both the what and the how, helping them think differently and act differently. And with that, I am excited to turn this over to David, who will share how Coral Gables put this approach into practice. David, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Let me share my screen. Steph, can you see it okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So first of all, appreciate the opportunity to share. I have to admit that, I'm just one small piece of Coral Gables, and there's a lot of folks that are behind the scenes that put all the hard work into achieving the outcomes that the community has been able to achieve. So I just want to recognize them and their hard work, and it's an honor to present on their behalf. So for our brief time together, we have 3 key objectives. So the first is provide you really a step-by-step roadmap that you can copy and that you can use to dramatically improve the outcome specific or unique to your community. And so I'm going to share those 3 steps, and then I'm going to show you how we used it in Coral Gables and the secrets that we used, kind of lessons learned, what we do differently, and really anxious to hear some of your questions. And then finally, very, very important, is Stephanie and I want to inspire you to want to learn more. So it's really important to follow up with Stephanie and, as she mentioned, offer a one-on-one call with Stephanie and I to help you kind of move forward if you're struggling, or what's the framework to get started. But we're excited to help you move forward. Coral Gables is in Florida. It's just south of downtown Miami on the water. It's a beautiful community. It's a master plan community. Very, very exciting, all the things that they've been doing. Our vision is to be a world-class city with a hometown feel. We measure that. So it's not just to say we, want to be, all of that. We measure it. And how we measure our vision is to be in the top 20th percentile or 20% better when compared to Miami-Dade, right? Florida and the overall United States. So you saw in the emails that went out from Stephanie on LinkedIn, some of the accomplishments Coral Gable has done, but a few of the ones that I want to highlight. We're really happy to reduce the percent of residents without health insurance. And by gaining that, by, getting the community engaged, you get access, then they get a primary care, then they see regular visits, they get screening. And so we have seen some dramatic improvement in the reduction of heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes, COPD, and asthma. And the safety, we've been able to reduce accidental death by 75%, crime rate, violent, reduced by almost 72. Economy is doing great, income, unemployment. Very proud being able to do all this and achieve AAA bond rating still. Education, increase reading and math proficiency and increase graduation rate. And then kind of the overall, the quality of life, high resident satisfaction, feeling safe, would recommend. And kind of the big ones that we're super excited about, 96% of the residents satisfaction with the quality of life. That puts us in the top 3% across the United States when compared to over 600 communities. And then recently we did a business satisfaction survey, and 99% business satisfaction with quality of life, the top 1%. So I share this with you, one, because we're proud, but two, to set the framework of how we did it. So step one, it's really, really simple, is you must create not just a community scorecard, but a compelling community scorecard that really drives interest, both in terms of celebration, right, what you're doing well, but also what maybe you're not doing so well that you need to rally your community around to improve performance. So here are some of the key specifics. The criteria, the new revised core criteria, has 7 key elements that they're looking for approaches that achieve outcomes in these key 7 areas. So what we recommend is you identify community leaders within each of these seven quality of life aspects. And you're looking for these individuals, you know who they are, right? They have passion, expertise, authority, influence, and access. This is also important to financial and non-financial resources, because you're going to need that person to help put resources behind to achieve the outcomes most important to you. And once you have those individuals that are aligned to each of the 7, then you're going to meet to identify 1 or 2, no more than that. You want to start small, but you want to go big with those 1 or 2. What are the objectives? I always say, what do you want to increase? What do you want to decrease? Just keep it super, super simple. And then you're going to create trend charts. You want to go retrospective on each of those measures, 1 or 2 within each of the 7. 3 to 5 years of retrospective data for each of your strategic objectives. And then once you have that, trend data, and then you say, where do we want to be in short and long term? And it should be achievable, right? With focus, effort, and resources, you may set a short-term target of increase in a few percent, but then compound it over 5 or 10 years, you want to really dramatically improve. And you're going to summarize these outcomes with the 7 on a 1-page strategy map. So this is an example of a strategy map. This is the 5 strategic objectives that we used last year under the old criteria. The new criteria has what? Has the 7, but I'm just using it as an example. Now we stack our strategic objectives into a strategy map, what they call a flywheel. At the base, we have a thriving economy. And with that, we're going to develop safe neighborhoods. We're going to provide educational excellence. We're going to provide health and safety, and ultimately quality of place. And the greater that we can show quality of place, that's going to drive our flywheel, that more businesses and people are going to want to come to our community, right? And with those resources, we can increase strategic objectives above it. So now at the table, who do you include at your table within each of you, these five? Let me show you what we did, but for your seven moving forward. And this is who we selected as the vital few. President of the chamber, the city economic development director, the fire chief, the police chief, the high school principals, the president of the community foundation, health and safety, the health department, hospital CEO, and then all of us are involved and contribute to the perception of our residents and businesses of quality of place. So these are the key measures that we selected. There's only 13 that we selected. So bond rating, household income, unemployment, reduce violent crimes, police accreditation, fire ISO. We want to increase high school graduation rate for our 2 high schools. We want to decrease residents without health insurance. We want to decrease accidental death. We want to increase resident satisfaction, quality of life. We want to increase business satisfaction, quality of life. And again, the more we do here, the flywheel goes up, and the more residents and the business are thrilled, right? Would recommend, more businesses are going to come in, drives our economic prosperity. So what you're going to do in step one, creating your compelling scorecard, is you're going to use the revised core quality of life, the 7. I always recommend stack them. Now you do what you want, makes sense to you, but typically at the bottom is the economy because everything's solved by jobs. And then you may want to think about social connection at the very top. But you do whatever you want that feels good. And then next to each, you're going to identify your 1 or 2 key strategic objectives to create your core strategy map and a strategy flywheel. So in step 2, and this is, I preach this, to everyone that wants to listen, but really the secret to our success is since 2018, we meet every single month. Every single month we go to the gym and we work out, and that's the secret. And so we review the trend charts that each of the leaders created, right? The 7 quality of life. And this becomes our meeting agenda at our monthly COE executive team. Each of these 7 are an agenda, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And during that, as the leader, the champion of each of these strategic objectives, we want to celebrate our successes, right? What's going well? What are some key milestones? We also want to identify performance that's below desired target levels. And once we do that, then we want to identify program and process owners, right? To identify the root causes. What's preventing us from moving forward? What's preventing us from closing the performance gap between our current performance and our desired target level? And that's a huge step. So monthly you meet, we do it in Zoom, right? This is our agenda. It's very data driven. We look at the charts and then we talk about successes. We talk about the gaps. Why do we have a gap? Who do we need to talk to close the gap? So this is really our monthly meeting. This is our agenda. We go through each of these 13 strategic objectives, identify celebrate the success, and what are the challenges. Okay. This is an example of a trend chart that we do. So we have multiple years. This is violent crimes per 100,000. So what I like to do in the charts is the bar is our data. The lines are our comparative data. So you remember in our vision, we want to be in the top 20th percentile or 20% better, Miami-Dade, Florida, the United States. So here we have in a table their data trended over time, retrospectively, and then we just use Excel to then project out what's going to be the projected performance in the future. So you can see where we started in 2018, our crime rate and it's steadily decreased over time. Not perfect, a couple blips, but the general trend is going down. Here's high school graduation rate. When we first started in 2018, high school graduation rate was just above average. Well, think about going to your mission and vision, right? Our vision is to be world class. This is not world class, right? So we think about what do we want to do or must do? What are the root causes? What actions must we take to close gap to improve performance? Step 3, this is critical. So when you set a bold vision and you want to be the 20% better, top 20 percentile, you look at your data, you see your performance, you see your target, you see the gap. Now you got to take action to close the gap. And I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks of what we've done to help systematically identify what are the root causes and then implement our performance improvement system. So once you have a measure or strategic objective that's below target, you're going to meet with program and process owners. So for example, if we're looking to decrease violent crime, well, we're meeting with the police department, we're meeting with neighbors, whoever we need to talk to identify the root cause. And we're going to conduct a root cause study. We're going to go retrospective and look at every single event we did not meet our desired target level. And we're going to ask 4 questions. Who did not, what did not, where did you not, and when did you not meet desired performance target levels? And this gets into then segmenting your data to identify when, who, what, and where you're not meeting target. For those that remember the game of Clue, we're playing Clue, right? Where was the crime? Colonel Mustard in the library, the candlestick. That's what you're trying to do. And then you're going to create Pareto charts using your retrospective study to create Pareto charts to identify the major contributors to the program that's not meeting target. You've all heard of the 80-20 rule. And then with your team and based on now you know the root causes, you know what are the mountains in front of you, then you're going to identify and implement solutions to overcome each of the key root causes. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's violent crime. So we're doing good. We were not here at our vision to be in the top 20th percentile. We are now, but we weren't then for the first few years. So we took our crime data and we went through who, what, where, and when. And here's an example. So a couple big who's are, or what, excuse me, what are the violent crimes? What's our 80-20 rule? Well, in Coral Gables, it was aggravated assaults. And those that are not familiar with Pareto charts, let me explain this. To the left, Y is the frequency. This is the number of violent crimes. And to the right is the cumulative percentage. So in 2024, aggravated assaults accounted for, you come over, 76% of all violent crimes. If then you add robbery, you're up to 90%. So if I want to reduce violent crimes by 10% to get in the top 20%, I know what I need to work on. The second is, where are violent crimes occurring? Look at this. One zip code represents 65.8% of all violent crimes. Now, we also track it by race and gender and a bunch of others, but you get the sense. Now I know who, what, where, and when. And then based upon that data, I can create customized solutions within each geographic area. Each zip code may have a different root cause and a different required solution. And that is how we're able to dramatically reduce the incidence of violent crime per 100,000, where we were not at role model, at world class. Now we are. Now we are significantly better than Miami-Dade, Florida, and the United States. Next example is high school graduation. Again, when we first started, we were just above average, but that is not meeting our vision to be a world-class community. So what did we do? Who, what, where, and when are not graduating high school, right? So we took the data, we dug into the data, and here's one aspect that we saw. In education, it's pretty much nationwide. You can look at 13 different demographics of who's graduating and not. So exceptional, free and reduced lunch, ELEs, English second language, poverty risk, male, female, and then by race. So we took that data, and while we were making some progress, it wasn't until we really segmented the data, boom, we took off and then dramatically improved performance, and then got above being just above average to our high school graduation rate now, way above Miami-Dade, way above Florida, and way, way above the United States. So we took these and we lit it up. And it turns out our Black students and ESE students were not graduating at the rate we wanted. So then we created focus groups within each of these and working with staff to further identify what are the root causes within these demographics that are preventing these children from graduating. And once we knew that, then we could create a dialogue with the students, the parents, the educators to come up with a strategy, a solution to improve performance. And so that's how we got 23. I got to update to 24, but 97% of our students. Now, when you think about this, the data is really clear. The research is really clear. If you can increase high school graduation rate, all the dominoes downstream make a dramatic improvement, right? They get jobs, they get health care, they get preventative care, they have better health outcomes, reduce crimes. So this is that idea of the strategy map and the flywheel, that certain things impact other things downstream. And with Stephanie's help in coaching, we've been trying to show those cause and effect. And I really appreciate Stephanie and the team helping us make those connections, but very, very powerful. Didn't do this in Tropic, but this was this was an elementary school that was struggling with kids and reading and math and science proficiency. So you need data, right? So this is a picture of and it's huge. I mean, it's a big poster, and it's in every classroom in this elementary school. And each kid has a clothesline. Remember those, right? With their name on it. And as they come into the day, they put the clothespin with what they need, right? And then throughout the day, the kids move the clothespin based upon the day and their mood and what's going on. And it gives real-time feedback to the teacher to then globally or individually meet the student's needs. And if you meet the student's social needs, they're going to what? They're going to be able to learn. If they learn, they're going to increase their proficiency, and then they can successfully graduate. But what's interesting, this was a tough school and a tough neighborhood and a tough economic, but on Mondays, most of the clothespins were down here. Is they needed food, they were hungry, they needed water, they were homeless, or there were certain safety issues affecting them personally. And you know, young kids, they don't care what anyone thinks. They put them here. They put their clothespins here. So now the teacher who's responsible for the child's education and their proficiency now can connect that student and talk to the student, say, we're going to call your parent. We're going to get your power turned back on. We're going to get you new shoes and clothes. We're going to get you safe housing, right? And once the child is able to move to that different paradigm, I'm safe, now they can learn. And with just this, along with some other techniques, this really, really poor school become one of the highest performers in both reading, math, and science proficiency levels throughout the state of Florida by just what? Getting data, getting feedback, and then adjusting to what the students need at their basic level. This is what I love, what C.O.R.E is doing with the social areas, because all those things are important for a community success. Very, very powerful. Okay, I'm wrapping it up, Stephanie. So again, you know, the 3 steps in being relentless and by focus on a few and by meeting every single month and creating the relationships, is the secret of how we perform. Using the data, using trend charts, using process improvement, using Pareto charts, root cause analysis, that is the secret. So this was our step-by-step. This is how we did it. And I'm hoping is that you really take Steph and I up. This is a lot of information in a very short time, but we would love to meet with you personally with a Zoom call and help you move forward and implement the core criteria specific to your community so that you can see similar results. So I got, Stephanie.
All right. Thanks, David. I have just a couple more slides here, and then we're going to open this up for questions. We like to keep these to 30 minutes because we know sometimes you're on your lunch break and you're busy, but we definitely are here after if you have more questions. So you guys all just heard what David and Coral Gables has achieved. As he said, one of the common questions we get after these sessions is how do you get started? And so I want to give you a little bit of information about our impact pathway, which is exactly what this has been designed to support you all on these journeys. So it is a guided journey that helps communities move from vision to measurable impact. It is organized around these 5 milestones that you see here, and each is focused on building a specific capability from team alignment to understanding conditions to planning, execution, and sustainability. And communities can enter at different points depending on your readiness, but the milestones build toward the same goal, improving quality of life through coordinated cross-sector action. Most communities begin with milestone 1, which is build your team for long-term success. And it focuses on creating the foundation that Coral Gables described today, a strong cross-sector core team, a shared case for change, and clear ways of working that support execution. Now, know that this is not about adding another plan. This is about making sure you have the right people that are aligned and ready to act together. Milestone 1 begins in February, and we'll be sharing more details with anyone who is interested in exploring whether this is a good fit. As a thank you for joining us today, as David said, we are offering a small bonus for you all. If you'd like to talk through what getting started could look like for your group, we are happy to offer a 30-minute conversation. My email is on the next slide. Just reach out to me and we'll make it happen. And I think Haley is going to put this information in the chat box as well. So with that, I do want to open this up for any of your questions, either about Coral Gables experience or about the impact pathway more broadly. So please, let's hear your questions.
Hi, Stephanie. This is George. One
Hey, George.
question is,
can we get a copy of that presentation?
David, will you show the presentation?
Of course I will.
Then the answer is yes. This is also being recorded and we'll share the recording.
Thank you very much. And congratulations, David, for your work. It's wonderful.
What community are you with?
We're with Riviera Beach, Florida.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Beautiful
And
area.
we just, after a couple of years, got our project into this year's budget.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope you take us up on a quick meeting and get your team started really quick and
We will.
get improvements really quick for you.
Thanks, George. Sunil, I see your hand up.
Hey, hi. I actually wanted to say hi to Harry as well. I forgot to say hi to him. It's been a long time, but I always appreciate seeing him. So, quick question. I've always been fascinated by you being able to bring together different agencies. So you gave examples of the police and the fire department and education, and they've been around for a long time. Obviously, they've had measures and metrics, and they probably have had issues for a while. When you brought all these groups together, and since your leadership structure is a bit unique in terms of you don't have an individual who's leading, you've got a group. How did you get buy-in from those agencies in terms of, police and education? Like I said, I've been pretty grounded for many years. So what was that like?
Actually, it was a great question, and easier than you thought. We did two things. One is when we looked at their data, we really celebrated their successes. And when there were challenges that they were frustrated with, that they could not move the needle to improve performance, the collective group of our C.O.E. team offered to help. What can we do to help you close the gap? What resources do you need? So for the example, with the education one, it had to do with additional funding for one-on-one mentorship for at-risk high school students. So each of our team members went back to their group, we went to the foundation, and we raised $20,000 to help this, and we've been doing it ever since. With the police department, one of the things on the crime and the violent crime per 100,000 and the accidental deaths, love them, but they weren't really integrated. They were just focused on activity and not necessarily outcomes. And they weren't looking at the 4 W's: who, what, where, and when. So they were doing a lot of programs, but what we were able to do is, if you look at your data differently, right, and you align new programs to your unique root causes, you're going to see dramatic improvement. Now, they didn't believe us initially, right? But the first time they saw improvement, they go, do it again, and then do it again. And so that just helped them understand data that they haven't looked before. And that's how we got their buy-in, was small successes that we built over time to grow.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. There's a question in the chat, and then I'll get to Michael next. So in the chat we have, how would I tailor this to an individual school community that has a high percentage of families that are McKinney-Vento? And I have to admit, I don't know what that is. So we may need some additional explanation there.
Oh, so sorry. McKinney-Vento is the program for our homeless, disadvantaged, and underserved families in Davidson County, Tennessee.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Got it. You want me to talk about that, Stephanie?
Yes, please, David.
So I love working with schools, and the core criteria and what Stephanie talked about is perfect. I'll give you an example. So there's a new school that I'm working with on this, and they have a homeless problem too, and they have an economic and job issues. And so on their COE team, when they first started to do this, it was all educators. It was all educators. There was no one from the health department. There was no one from housing. There was no one from, the police department. There was no one. And so when they expanded their team to begin talking about individuals that have authority, influence, expertise, and money that can give targeted to those students and their parents access to programs to overcome their housing, worked really quick. So back to the prior question about getting buy-in, it was really interesting working with some of these larger city or county organizations. When we brought them in to personalize it to an individual face and a child, now it became more meaningful, and they went out of their way to ensure that a connection with the student's parents, the parents learned about the community programs, we helped them apply for the funding and help them throughout the process. So they were fed, they were housed, they were clothed, they had medical attention. Now the child's ready to learn. So it's really an education thinking beyond just educators, but those other social determinants that are within the 7 bring to your COE team.
Gotcha. Yes, we've actually, I am the Dean of Community Health and Compliance for Nurses Middle College Nashville. We are a new healthcare focused high school that just opened this year in August. So it's been very cumbersome with getting our name out there and just letting community partners know that we're here. We are in need of resources to assist with our homeless population, as well as just some of our underserved families. We have partnered with a couple of places in Nashville, but it's been very, very hard to get funding specifically for student support services.
Sure.
Versus academics.
Yeah, just a quick suggestion. Steph and I are working with the state on literacy, and one of our strategies is to find the lowest scoring and then focus on that one to create a pilot program with great results. And then based upon that, other communities would say, hey, can you come help us? So sometimes you have to go from the macro to the micro, help one get positive results, then leverage those positive results to what? Get more funding to expand your influence to improve in other areas throughout your community. So that micro is really important. That's what we did with that one elementary school. School district was not interested in this at all. But once this one elementary school started getting going, and they're going, what's going on in Tropic Isles, right? And now it just spread through the entire school district. So that's one approach you may want to consider.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're definitely going to expand. We're waiting to get a new building because we're kind of small right now. But the goal is to have our own student-based health center.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Michael, you're next. You have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Stephanie. David, thank you for a really terrific presentation. So up until a couple of months ago, I was the lead for the Smart Cities program at the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, or NIST. A good friend of mine is probably one of yours, and that's Raimondo Rodolfo, who's your Chief Technology Officer at Coral Gables.
Yep.
And I wonder if you could comment from the perspective of what you have been doing, how the advanced technology work that's been done out of the CTO's office in Coral Gables may have contributed, or was it separate from your effort, or how much interface was there between the two? And did you find that technology availability or infrastructure helpful in the program that you designed and led?
Love that question. And I'll give you a Disney example. You know, when you see a show at Disney, you see only a few people on stage, but there's 1,000 people behind the scenes. Technology is one of them, right? They're not often on stage with the lights, but the city has done a tremendous amount for technology, and both for homeowners and businesses. So some of the technology they've done, both in terms of disaster preparedness, business sustainability, all those kinds of things, are one of the reasons that we were able to get 99% business satisfaction with quality of life. It's because of the technology and access to fiber and other aspects of the community and transportation and all the things that he's doing to really make magic within the city. So often these folks don't get enough credit, but the individual you mentioned deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, thanks. My perspective is that Coral Gables is probably the most advanced city in the country relative to the real integration of technology, at least based on what I've seen. So the question then that arises is, how do you accomplish what you've accomplished in a city that does not have access to that kind of technology, that doesn't have the backbone of fiber, that doesn't have the integrated traffic control systems that I know Coral Gables has, and things of that nature? Where do you start from if you lack the technology background? And would you make any changes to the program and the way you approached it?
So let me give you an example, and I hope this meets your needs, and Stephanie hears me say this all the time, but the first thing you have to do is you got to create a villain, right? What's the challenge in our community? So I'll give you an example. Many of our students that were not graduating lived outside Coral Gables and didn't have access to technology, okay? And so, one of the things is, first, we're trying to improve graduation. If we improve graduation, we're going to increase the economy, median income, we're going to reduce crime, we're going to increase. So once people get a sense of what does fiber do? Well, it does all those things I just mentioned, right? It's not an isolated thing, but it has all these other impacts. It's the same thing with our partners with the chamber within the city. They just think of themselves as being in business. I see them as healthcare professionals, because the more people in our community that have a job, can get health insurance, can get a primary, get regular visits, all the positive things go in from there. So the solution in your example of technology or fiber, it's first not having that. What's the social negative or the outcome of not having that is critical and is having harmful, right? It's got to be painful, negative impact to our community. And once you identify that in a clear strategy map, now you can start to say the solution is this, right? I'll give one other quick example. One of the communities, the police chief was just, he wanted like $500,000 to get license plate readers, right? And he goes from the city council, I want 500,000, and they shot him down, right? So I talked to him, I said, you gotta change this, brother. I go, why do you want this? Well, the data showed there was an increased number of robberies, rapes, home invasions. So then he came back in 6 months to the city council and says, ladies and gentlemen, we have a crisis in our community. And he showed the data of increased home invasions and assaults and robberies, violent robberies in our community. And the council and the mayor go, oh my God, police chief, what can we do? Cameras. They bought it. So you got to connect it to the villain. What's the negative?
Yeah.
And then what's the solution? Does that help?
That's very helpful. Thanks a lot, Dave. And that's a great perspective on that. And good luck with what you're doing and continuing to move on that. Very impressive.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you've done at the national level, and Stephanie, her team are doing as well. So it's really making an impact to those that use what Stephanie is suggesting, and you and everyone can achieve these similar outcomes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think that was it for the chat and what I saw. Well, David, any parting words before we wrap up?
Yes. Email Stephanie right now. Say, I want to get a call. So, a lot of this is, big picture, what we did, but it may not be exactly for you. So let's set up that call. Let's talk about what you're trying to do. Are you at the very beginning? Or you have started and you're at a standstill and you can't move forward? Let us help you. It's free, right? What do you got to lose, right? And so really want to inspire you with some tools to help you and your community be successful. And that success breeds more success, right? It's that flywheel. And so get some small wins that will lead to bigger wins, and it will get to more buy-in and more investment in your core COE initiative so you can positively impact other areas in your community.
Well, thank you so much, David, for joining us. Thanks to all of you for giving us your time today. And we really appreciate you joining. We will send this recording and slides out as soon as I can. And as David said, we would love to talk to you. So I encourage you to connect, and you have our information. And in addition, these webinars are every other month. We'll hear from a different community each time on their journey and the impact that they're having too. So I hope you'll continue to join us as well for those. So thanks everyone, and have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Steph.
Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.